Yes,
Good
Alkama, I
evening,
think we
shall
should.
we start?
Good evening. I think we should start now.
Okay, sir. Mr. X, 45 years, old gentleman, resident of Havra district, West Bengal, came with the chief complaint of blood in the vomiters in the morning associated with abdominal discomfort. History of present illness. Patient had patient had an episode of hematemesis in the morning. It was sudden in onset, projectile with approximately 250 ml of fresh blood. There were no food particles. There was associated giddiness and nausea and abdominal discomfort. There is no history of retching, coughing just prior to the episode.
Okay, please continue, Alkama.
Alkama, we can't hear you.
Hello.
I think Alkama might be muted. No, she isn't muted.
Hello?
Yeah, Alkama, go
Please
ahead.
continue.
Hello?
Yeah, please continue.
Alkama, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, sir. Patient had similar history of 6 to 7 episodes of hematemesis in the past since 2 years, for which endoscopic intervention was done multiple times. Patient has also received multiple blood transfusion in the past for the same. Last episode of hematemesis occurred in May 2020. There was history of passage of black tarry foul smelling stools 2 days ago. There was history of intermittent mild epigastric pain since 3 months, non-radiating, not associated with food intake, which was relieved on medication. There was history of gradual progressive distension of abdomen and pedal edema since 1 year, not associated with any history of cardiac events in the past, breathlessness or facial puffiness. There was no history of lump in the abdomen, weight loss or any loss of appetite. Patient has history of alcohol intake for the past 30 years with history of daily intake of approximately 180 ml of liquor. There was no history of fresh per rectal bleed. There was no history of sudden onset abdominal pain, stroke, or deep vein thrombosis. There was no history of altered sensorium. Past history, patient had history of similar 6 to 7 episodes in the past since 2 years, and there were no history of any other comorbidities. Family history was not significant. Personal history, patient consumes mixed diet, normal sleep pattern, normal bladder bowel habits, no history of any other addictions. Coming to summary of history, 45-year-old male, chronic alcoholic, presented with present episode of painless hematemesis with melena. There is history of multiple similar episodes of hematemesis in the past. Patient also has history of progressive distension of abdomen with pedal edema.
Okay, stop at this point. Important what is that good presentation. It is really important that you people are very much improving. Just I have only one objection, Alkama, is that this part of this is in patient's own language. There will be examiners who will like the patient's own language to be used during the history of the present illness. While you are keeping into the patient summary, this is your area. This is where you come in and you are narrating that. The patient did not tell you hematemesis. Patient did tell you that there was a profuse blood in the vomitus.
Like you did in your first presentation, Alkama, isn't it?
Chief complaint in the patient language and in history we can't
No,
write in
no. History is
medical term.
patient's. History is patient's language. History you have to use
Okay, sir.
patient's language.
And also
Okay.
the spelling, I think Rudrajit has, Ramanuj has already corrected that spelling.
Okay,
So,
right. Now, so the patient has a history of hematemesis in the morning or blood in the vomitus in the morning. Now, so this is the only point to ask about. Now, before we proceed on to the examination of such a patient, remember that this patient, I do not know whether he will have an ascites or later, or has an ascites now. Now, you have said no history of abdominal discomfort. What about abdominal distension?
History of abdominal discomfort.
Acha, so he has a history of abdominal distension. Okay, and you are saying that this is discomfort.
Yes.
Okay, right enough. Okay, and number two is that there is no retching, etc. Now let us start with the vomiting. The patient had 6 to 7 episodes of, again, blood in the vomitus, or if you want to use fresh blood in the
Fresh
vomitus.
blood.
Okay, in the since
Yes.
2 years for which endoscopic interventions was done. Now, endoscopy is a word that examiners will accept is something that a patient knows has been done multiple times. Okay, and as a doctor, you are not required to know what is the intervention, but he has told you intervention was done is a good point. Has received multiple transfusions, etc. Last episode of hematemesis occurred in this year. Luck tarry foul smelling stools suggested that there is a melena, intermittent epigastric pain, okay, gradual progressive distension of abdomen, and pedal edema. Now, pedal edema is a term that I will not like. I will usually like
spelling.
progressive distension of the abdomen, okay, is progressive swelling of the abdomen, and this is followed by not pedal edema, by uh, progressive
Ankle
swelling of both the feet and the ankle, particularly marked when the patient is standing. Okay, so since 1 year, not associated with history of cardiac events in the past, breathlessness or facial puffiness. Good enough. Now, last point is no lump in abdomen. Patient has a history of daily intake into this. Past history is this. Okay, important
Uh,
contributions are there. Yes.
Ramanuj, do you want her to say specifically rather than saying no comorbidities? Do you want to specify
Hmm.
diabetes? You know, in
Exa-
particular, I think it just might be worthwhile because you're trying to
I think, I
justify
think, I think, I think
a
it will be
diagnosis.
worthwhile. We will come to each and every point. Now, before Alkama, before we start proceeding into the depths of this, and as you have said, a good history, you have said more or less all important points. Let me ask you very bluntly. Okay, does this patient have an upper GI bleed from the history?
Yes.
Because to a postgraduate, I can ask this question. To an undergraduate, no. Does this patient have an upper GI bleed? The second question is
Yes,
why?
sir.
Why did you say this kind of bleed is an upper GI bleed?
So first, sir, history is telling blood in the vomitus, and second, he is telling about melena,
There's
and
a
both are
Alkama. There's a term that uh, Dr. Mukherjee used, Professor Mukherjee used. Remember, there's an
fresh
adjective.
blood, sir.
Very good, exactly.
So this is a fresh blood in the vomitus. So please
Very good.
remember that goes in favor that you are talking about something called as an upper GI bleed. Can you define an upper GI bleed?
Sir, and bleeding which occurs from the mouth till the ligament of trees that are classified under upper GI, and beyond that ligament of trees are under lower GI bleed.
Okay. Question number 3. What are the 3 manifestations of an upper GI bleed?
Upper, sir, hematemesis,
Okay.
melena.
Number 2, number 3. If the patient has aspirated this blood, then what is going to happen after the vomiting? If he has aspirated the blood, this is a very uncommon. The opposite happens. Okay, exactly. So this blood that is vomited out sometimes does enter the bronchi, and the patient will then, if he has a normal intact bronchial system, then he will just, what is the term called as?
Hematochezia.
Okay, not hematochezia. It is. Okay,
Coughlin.
but remember, this is a extremely rare manifestation of an upper GI bleed. On the other hand, patients who have this condition, they swallow the blood, and that swallow leads technically to a hematemesis, okay, and sometimes even a melena. That leads to hematemesis, sometimes even a melena. So hematemesis, melena, and these points. So guys, this completes the story,
Uh,
right?
Ramanu, Saurabh pointed out something very interesting. In the history,
Hmm.
since we are heading towards cirrhosis,
Hmm.
shouldn't the past history of jaundice be an
Exactly. We are coming. So the first point is that, so we have talked about upper GI bleed. Now, in this bleed, the next question is that, see, what are the questions that come from any patient with a bleeding? Now, the questions that will obviously become, so this is upper GI bleed. Is this episode of bleed an acute event, or is this episode of bleed a chronic event, or is it acute on a chronic event? Because I am approaching this
Acute or
one.
chronic event.
Okay, what are the points that make you ask? Because we will come to symptomatologies, each and every one, starting from bleeding, and then we come to vomiters, etc. Okay, so now let
So,
us talk about what are
so
the
this is acute
manifestations of
that,
an acute. Okay, what are the
sir,
manifestations of an
fresh
acute bleed?
bleeding. Fresh, he's telling about fresh bleeding.
Okay,
And as the patient is still telling the past history that he had similar episodes, that means the disease progress has started very before. So it is actually chronic event in which there is acute exacerbation.
right. You may
And
say
there
that,
is,
sir, absolutely right. You may say that, sir, I will also correlate with my answer in the physical examination where apart from the various multiple episodes that the patient has of a bleed, this is a chronic bleed, but there are also signs of chronic bleed like a
ankle
significant
edema,
pallor, ankle edema,
distension.
etc. Okay, but this is an episode of an acute and a chronic bleed. And now you told about what are the classical signs that tell you that this is an acute bleed. What are the classical signs that is going to tell you that this is an, or symptoms, not signs, symptoms in the history that is going to tell you that this is an acute bleed? As you have very rightly said, the history of a syncope, okay, associated with this will be associated with a huge amount of bleed from the patient. So this is the second point to talk about. The third point to talk about is that as you have said, this is bleed, and as you have said that he had received an interventions and endoscopy into that. Now that makes me ask you two questions. Okay, a patient has an upper GI bleed. Now let us think about organ-wise symptomatology. Okay, now let us think about each and every one as an organ. Now, when you start with these parts, the first obviously that should come to our mind always is the stomach. Number two is we'll talk then of the causes in the esophagus. Third is we'll talk about the causes in the duodenum. And lastly, maybe rarely, you could have also the causes in the pancreas, which can be a rare cause of an upper GI bleed. No, not spleen, sir. Understand. These are the four organs which are responsible for bringing the blood. Understand the approach. Either there is a bleeder in the duodenum, or there is a bleeding from the pancreatic duct that comes into the duodenum, or there is a pathology in the stomach that blood falls into that, or there is an esophageal pathology that makes the blood fall into this. Do you understand the
Yes, sir.
approach? Now, let us talk about each and every organ, and let us talk about the common causes before we proceed on to the examination. Starting on with esophagus, what are the common esophageal diseases that you think is associated with an upper GI bleed? Hello? What are the common esophageal
Sir,
diseases that are associated? Is always
esophageal varices.
always an esophageal varix. An esophageal varix is secondary to what condition? Is secondary to
Portal hypertension. Portal hypertension.
Portal hypertension. Can you be a little more specific on portal hypertension? Now see, gradually we are increasing the level of discussion. Okay, because portal hypertension is the theme for today. So that means the esophagus had varices that had built up because Dr. Sanjay Debakshi has already taught you this one, and you are again, Sanjay is again going to show you. In the portal circulation, remember that the varix will always build up when you have this vein called as a coronary vein. Okay, which where does the coronary lesser curvature, and where does it drain into? It drains into the trunk of the portal vein. Now that means when there is a block in the portal vein, either in the liver or just before the liver, remember that the back pressure will be transmitted from this and will be correlated into this, which will make an esophageal varix formation along with the gastric and the esophageal veins, and remember, thus the esophageal veins and the gastric veins will form. So there will be gastric veins on the lesser curvature along with esophageal veins on the fundus and the greater curvature. So that means, as you have said, either the cause of portal hypertension is in the liver, or if you are talking about a pre-sinusoidal, maybe I will mainly consider the liver to be a cause of the pathology rather than an EHPVO, which may be a cause also. Okay, but definitely, as you have said, this is one of the things in my mind. Come to the stomach. What are the common causes or pathologies? Again, this is the trap, Alkama, that the examiner is waiting for you. What is the most common cause of an upper GI bleed? Across is a peptic ulcer disease. Very good. Okay, so out of all 100 patients who presents with an upper GI bleed, how many people will come with a peptical or a non-variceal cause, and how many will come with a variceal cause?
Non-variceal is 30 to 40%, and variceal bleeding is up to 60 to 70%.
I will not agree with you. Sanjay, do you agree?
No, not correct.
Now, as you see, both examiners are not happy. So, your chance to correct or stick on to your answer, and then I know how to defend your answer as well, but your chance to correct your answer.
Most common is peptic ulcers, so non-variceal will be more than 60 to 70.
Okay, that means that what I should do is that I should take this block.
Opposite, sir. Non-variceal is 60 to 70.
Okay.
So do a mirror image.
Okay, so I took this to this and this side. So what I should also do is that I should make that smiley. Okay, I am happy now. But Alkama, if you had said and if you had stuck on to the old one, does any cohort have this cause of an upper GI bleed? Does any particular patient group has this cause as an upper GI bleed?
Sir, I could not get your question, sir.
My question is, does any particular patient population have this cause as that cause of the bleed? That means when a patient has a variceal bleed, and then is more. No, we are not talking. We are talking 100 patients with an upper GI bleed in a special patient population.
Alcoholic.
Which very
alcoholic.
good.
Very good.
Rather than talk alcoholic, talk about cirrhotic. So cirrhotic patients, if you now have these 100 patients with an upper GI bleed, this is their statistics, variceal and non-variceal. However, if you consider a general patient population, that means all age groups, peptic ulcer disease to angiodysplasias to GISTs, remember that we need to swap the data and we need to bring the non-variceal to 60 to 70 and variceal to this group. Okay. Now, quickly tell me a few non-variceal causes of an upper GI bleed and what is their symptoms like?
So non-variceal bleed, most commonly peptic ulcer disease.
Okay. Why did you say this patient's history is not matching with a peptic ulcer disease? That means peptic ulcer disease means you are talking of a gastric ulcer and a duodenal ulcer.
So peptic ulcer disease will mainly manifest with severe pain abdomen, then vomiting, which is associated with food.
Okay, so pain is associated with intake with food. Gastric ulcer increases on taking food. Duodenal ulcer is partly relieved or is seen more in empty stomach. Number two, as you have
Yes.
said, the duration is a very long duration. Okay, and number three is that the quantity of the blood is usually
Yes, sir.
modest. Okay,
In peptic ulcer disease, it is more massive bleed.
all right. In peptic ulcer, in esophageal varices, they are usually more massive bleed. But yes, melena is a more frequent problem in duodenal ulcer rather than a gastric ulcer. But yes, it should come as a differential diagnosis also. So tell that apart from the pain in this patient, very rightly said that, okay, any more rare causes of an upper GI bleed?
So Mallory-Weiss
Start with
syndrome, Delafoy
very good,
syndrome.
very good. So number two is Mallory-Weiss. What is this condition? Just illuminate us a little bit.
Sir, it is mainly
Now it is not
hematemesis.
called Mallory-Weiss syndrome, I think. It will be
But
called as a Mallory-Weiss tear. Sanjayda, will it be calling as a syndrome or will it be calling as a Mallory-Weiss tear? Hello? Hello?
sir, yes, sir.
Hello?
Bakshi, sir,
Yeah,
Hello? Okay. Sanjayda, will you be
yeah, I'm
calling it,
here.
what will be, right, what will be the proper terminology? Mallory-Weiss syndrome or Mallory-Weiss tear?
Uh, that's a tough one. I
Okay.
would suggest that you call it a Mallory-Weiss tear rather than a syndrome.
Because syndrome has a constellation, because examiners are very choosy. They
Choosy,
ask you
you
strange
have to
questions.
define, yeah, what else are there?
What else are there in the syndrome? So rather than get into all these problems, let us talk very sharp and blunt, because we need to discuss about the treatment part. So what is so special in a Mallory-Weiss tear? How does a patient a Mallory-Weiss tear come to you?
sir, it is mainly hematemesis after the episode of strainful vomiting, mainly in young males after having binge drinking.
Okay, so there is a episode of retching, something that you very rightly said that this patient did not have a retching, and the retching is associated with an episode to have a forceful vomitus, something that exactly Borhavis have. Okay, that is a forceful vomitus, and as we have said, usually seen in a young patient and has a bout of an alcohol binge. But also remember that these patients are also alcoholic. These patients are also alcoholic. So it is very dangerous sometimes to differentiate between and Mallory-Weiss with an variceal tear. Okay, but what is so special that you know that this is
Okay, sir.
not a variceal tear but a Mallory-Weiss? What is so
Sir, I
special?
can't hear your voice.
Am I audible
Hello?
now? Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Alkama, you better check your connection because, Ramanuj is coming through quite loud and clear out here. Will
Okay.
just check
Okay,
your
sir.
connection,
Right.
please.
So
Now it's
now it's okay,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Now,
yes.
so the question is that how to clinically differentiate then that it can be a varix versus a Mallory-Weiss? Do I know that you are wondering? We are going to do an endoscopy as such. So what is the difference between them? The difference is there because Mallory-Weiss has
Sir,
an excellent prognosis.
Sir,
So
Mallory-Weiss is sir more massive bleeding, huge amount of bleeding as
now,
compared
Alkama,
to.
let me tell you one simple
The
thing.
other thing.
When a patient bleeds, this is the basin in which he is bleeding. Now, the basin has a limited capacity, you see, and anyone who bleeds or has a vomitus, his gauge of massive bleed is that the basin fills up. Now, that is the thing, and the patient gets very afraid when his vomitus or bout of vomiting fills up the basin, and definitely there are food particles in that. It is at that time that everyone comes to you saying, "The doctor, I vomited out about I do not know how much. The basin got filled up." What is so special in a Mallory-Weiss?
Sir, history points in history of.
History is that now see, history is no one is going to tell you I did a forceful retching.
After an
Borhave did not. bore habit
After
did
an
not
alcohol
happen
binge.
after alcohol binge. Now, and no one admits to an alcohol binge. Everyone says we are modest drinkers. See, the only difference is Mallory Weiss in 94% of the cases is a self-limiting disease.
Absolutely.
Okay, so please understand that it is a self-limiting condition. You know what is the special about a Mallory Weiss? I drew the picture of that basin. That sight of the blood that fills up in the basin makes the patient so afraid that the patient says that, okay, I will never drink in my life. And when the bleeding, and when you tell him that, okay, don't worry, the bleeding is not going to happen, he says, the doctor, let's have a cheers. Okay, so this happens. So that is the first point of a Mallory Weiss. But a varix, remember, doesn't stop at once. Can you tell me why does a variceal bleed does not stop with single episode of vomiting?
Sir, variceal bleed that is generally due to venous stasis. Uh, Venous stasis, so there is, like in arterial bleeding, there occurs vasospasm. That type of vasospasm doesn't occur in venous bleeding.
Okay, very good. Number two, you are said rightly, Alkama, absolutely right. And number two,
Sir, I don't know.
okay, Alkama, you see, we had a bus conductor who had a varicose vein with a varicose ulcer, and then one day what happened was his ulcer had a bleeding, and the bus was on, and it bled torrentially. Then someone in the bus understood that this bleeding is not going to stop. Okay, so he made this chap lie down and then elevated the leg, and the bleeding stopped. Do you understand why am I telling you this story? Why does esophageal varix exactly bleed?
Due to gravity.
Low,
Due to gravity. That means all patients of esophageal varix, your treatment is legs up, head down. Let it bleed. Come on, man.
So
Isaac
due to
Newton
low
back,
was
esophagus.
so due to back pressure changes, sir.
due to back pressure changes. Very good.
Yes.
And you see, Sanjay Dar taught you about how does a varix develop. Come on, man. When does a varix bleed? Array. When does a varix bleed?
Hypertension, portal hypertension.
Total
We know.
hypertension.
Come on, man. That is an undergraduate answer. Portal hypertension.
Oh.
We know that. So now you are going to tell me, sir, variceal, then headache is due to. Then okay. So how does the varix bleed? Why does the varix bleed? At what point do you feel that the endoscopist decides that no, this is a dangerous varix, let's band it or sclero it, something like that, and because this is going to bleed? What are the signs in a varix that is going to tell you, ki guys, मैं फटने वाला हूँ?
Rupture,
Tortuous
sir.
dilated veins.
Rupturing due to
So tortuous dilated veins.
Okay. Now, Sanjay, I think you have that presentation, na?
Uh, I'll have to search for it, but it's the red whale signs, you know.
Ah, exactly. That
It's
means
not a
that
wheel, it's a whale, W-A-L-E, red whale.
a red whale sign. That means what happens is a varix attains a critical diameter. You see, that means if you consider that this is a vein in the wall of the esophagus. Now the beauty about this vein is that this vein has a communication with the gastric vein, and this vein has an upward drainage into a bronchial vein. And parallelly, I think Sanjay, I think you have thought about the devascularization and with the
Yes,
attenuation.
I've done. Yes,
Bas.
I've shown
Now
them
see,
that
the devascularizations, and see, these are the esophageal tributaries that it is receiving. Now this picture that I have made is exactly the picture of an esophageal vein which is on the outside wall of the esophagus. Mind it, the esophagus doesn't have a serosa like the stomach, so it is just loose adventitia. Now if you take a cross section, the main important point is, in a cross section, with time the diameter of the vein goes on increasing. More is the diameter of the vein, remember, it creates a pressure difference between the lumen of the vein P1 versus the bronchial pressure, versus the pleural pressure, that is P2. Now when P1 and P2, definitely P1 is equal to P2 or less than P2 in a normal circumstance. Whereas in a portal hypertension, what happens is P1, now remember that the blood should be draining towards this, towards the liver. In a portal hypertension, the story changes in a way that the direction of the arrow will come like this. What is this pattern of blood flow called as? Come on. What is this pattern? This is called as centrifugal. Very good. And if it is centrifugal, understand that the P1 will get greater than the P2 because blood is now coming, not going like this. And definitely when it attains a critical diameter that differs according to the caliber of the vein, it will rupture. Now the rupture is not on the outside wall because what is very important is the vein is supported by the adventitia, though loose. What it is not supported is the inside mucosa because the submucosal veins are tortuous and it bleeds. And once it bleeds, remember the centrifugal force is now going to push out all the blood through this ruptured vein. Okay, Sanjay, is this the explanation now, Amana? Because
Yes,
my knowledge
absolutely. And I've actually showed them a CT scan where you can see the azygos. The azygos and the hemiazygos. You have to remember that the systemic circulation in the level of the chest. Yeah,
right. I
because
should
you
have
don't.
written that.
It's
I should have
porta
written
cyst,
that.
which is why
Exactly.
it's called the porta azygos disconnection. All operations are called the porta azygos disconnection.
Right. Okay, I really forgot the zygos. Absolutely. Okay,
So
so this is all
Sir,
about the bleeding, right? Yes.
sir, then in that case, these are the esophageal veins only which bleeds in portal hypertension. And what about these parallel, sir? Means due to this pressure, these transverse vessels can even bleed. That
when you
drawn
do
in
a
the
disconnect,
diagram.
when you are doing a devascularization, original description of the Hassab's operation was to address the longitudinal veins. Then the later Seguera modification, what they do is they do not take the longitudinal veins. All you need to do,
Parallel.
that beautiful picture that Dr. Mukherjee has drawn, the horizontal veins coming in, you need to take that off. Get it? So you take the pressure off the mucosa, the submucosal veins. Get it?
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
understand this picture. This is importance. This is what is the basic understanding of the Shigura or the devascularization. Okay, right. And parallelly, see, when I teach this esophageal varix and portal hypertension, in a parallel world, how do you do a tributary ligation in a varicose vein? Do you at all take out the superficial great saphenous? No. Do you see the deep vein? No. But what you do is that you find these perpendicular perforators and parallelly go on ligating them. Okay. So this is all about the bleeding story that we talked about from this point. So now let us come back to that picture that I drew. Where is that picture of that organs? So let us not get lost. So we have talked about causes of upper GI bleed and we had stopped at Mallory-Weiss syndrome or Mallory-Weiss tear, which is definitely. Any other causes of an upper GI bleed?
So Delafoy lesion,
Okay.
polyp,
Delafoy's lesion. Okay, what is okay? Now just illuminate a few minutes on this Delafoy's lesion. What is this Delafoy's lesion?
So that is submucosal aneurysmal dilatation of the mainly the lesser curvature, veins of the lesser curvature.
Okay, so what does the patient complain with? What is the patient's
Complain
history?
with repeated episodes of bleed, upper GI bleed.
So how do you differentiate it from a gastric varix? Number one, this is a rare condition. Number two, it is usually in non-alcoholics. And lastly, is more of an endoscopic diagnosis than a clinical diagnosis. Sanjay, any more points on how to diagnose a Delafoy?
No, I think that's perfect. Absolutely.
Rare, non-alcoholics and endoscopic diagnosis. Okay, right. Why didn't you think this to be a stomach cancer? Or say for example a GIST?
stomach cancer, sir, that will more lead upper GI bleed, or gastric outlet obstruction, history of weight loss, all those things will be there.
When you talk about bleeding, you're right. The bleeding from a cancer or a cyst is usually a slow bleeding, and hence it is usually in form of a melena. It is not that it is not hematemesis, but if, as you have very rightly said, if it is associated with outlet obstruction, the blood is going to mix up with the acid hematine, and the blood vomiting color is just brown in color. Okay, so this is a profuse bleed, and thus, sir, clinically I had made this diagnosis as a cause of as the patient had a history of alcohol intake. So my history in the esophagus and the stomach causes were more in favor of a varix than into that. Now, duodenum causes and pancreas will rule out because the patient did not have any history of pancreatitis or symptoms like that. Duodenal causes, as we have said, is a duodenal ulcer. So I think that, so this is, yes, Sanjay.
Ranu, just thinking in completeness, in the terms of completeness, will be also in condition to the pancreas. Would you also just tell them about bleeding from the liver, hemophilia?
Very good. Now we start. Very nice. In this picture, you see, Sanjata has exactly pointed out the thing that I left out. Exactly. There is another thing in the story that needs to be drawn, and that part is the bile duct. And if you draw the bile duct like this, okay, this is the bile duct. So, what is hemophilia? How do you diagnose a hemophilia, and what is hemophilia?
Sir,
You see, from common to uncommon we are coming to. Like pancreas, we had a talk on pancreatitis, we had a lecture on pancreatitis. So we are not talking succus again. So hemosuccus pancreaticus, we are not talking. What is hemophilia?
Sir, air in the bile.
Air, that you're talking of pneumobilia.
That is pneumobilia, na? So very simple.
Blood.
So blood. So where does the blood come from? How can blood come in the bile duct? Come on, man. This comes with
fistula, sir.
Fistula between the portal vein and the bile duct. May God be with you. Okay, that never happens. Hemophilia is about aneurysm. Okay, aneurysm of what? Aneurysm of the pericolodical arteries. Okay.
Sir, parasites. Biliary parasites.
Sir, tumors of bile duct, sir. In that case,
trauma and tumors in bile duct. Okay, good one. Okay. Now, Sanjay, please illuminate a few words on hemophilia.
Okay, well, from the liver, it is sometimes somebody said trauma, absolutely right, but post-traumatic formation of a localized aneurysm, which sometimes bleeds into the bile duct, and then post-traumatic aneurysm. You also have post-cholecystectomy aneurysms of the cystic artery, which sometimes bleeds into the bile duct. But more common, and actually the most common reason, is cholangitis following choledocholithesis. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And it comes with an MCQ. Cholangitis with CBD stone. This is cause number 1. Do you know what is cause number 2? If this is cause number 1, if the disease is the cause, the treatment is the cause number 2. What is the treatment?
ERCP and ERCP, sir.
ERCP. So ERCP is the cause number 2.
So 1 and 2 are that. Then all these other things come in.
Okay, so please understand that. So these are the scenarios. So today we discussed about till now what is an upper GI bleed, what are the histories in relation with an upper GI bleed. Okay, I've started from acute bleed and chronic bleed. What is the Mallory Weiss? What is the Dulafoy? Why does the esophageal varix bleed? Why is it or why is it not a peptic ulcer bleed? So we had a discussion up till that. Now, if you have talked about all of these, now comes the important part. what are the other negative histories that you should take in relation
हाँ.
with these organs. Now, when you talk about the
हाँ.
negative
एक
histories,
रिपोर्ट है नहीं आपको, PTINR होता है जो
now, when you talk about the negative
Hello?
histories, yeah, I'll come. When you talk about the negative histories, so let us talk about organ to organ each of the negative histories. To start with, the first negative history is about diseases of the liver. What are the histories that are suggestive that the disease is in the liver?
Yes.
Hello? Yes.
Sir, liver parasitis, history of jaundice.
Okay.
Then
So that means, sir, history of jaundice, history of ascites or gradual distension of the abdomen, pain in the right upper part of the abdomen, heaviness or fullness in the left upper abdomen, splenomegaly, which is manifested by early satiety. Last is the reason for the liver disease. Could be alcohol as an etiology, could be
the liver.
so other causes like that. So these are the problems that you should take, or negative histories like history of jaundice should have always been taken. Okay, right. Now the next,
Stigmata of liver disease.
or
all
stigmata
those.
of liver disease and all these points. So I think that this is all. Okay, Sanjay, I think that okay for my end. So this.
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
So,
move on to the examination.
The examination phase. So Alkama, this is the reason I took a long time with the history. Now examination.